The average American worker spends over $2,000 a year on stress-related health issues, from migraines to digestive problems to sleeplessness, while the Japanese, living in one of the most high-pressure work cultures on the planet, report lower rates of stress-related heart disease and a longer average lifespan by nearly 7 years. Something does not add up. I spent 7 days immersing myself in 15 distinct Japanese breathing techniques, some ancient, some backed by modern respiratory science from universities like Kyoto University. And by the end of that week, my resting heart rate dropped by 11 beats per minute. My sleep score shot up 22 points, and I felt a level of calm I had not experienced in a decade. These are the 15 habits, ranked from the least to the most transformative, and some of them are so deceptively simple you can start doing them right now, in the middle of this video, and feel the difference within 90 seconds. We are starting at number 15 with a breathing habit that is not even really a breathing exercise. It is a posture habit that unlocks your entire respiratory system, and it is called seiza. Seiza is the traditional Japanese way of sitting, kneeling with your legs folded underneath you, spine naturally elongated, shoulders back. I tried this for just 10 minutes on day 1, and I felt like I had been breathing through a straw my whole life, and suddenly someone pulled it out. The first thing I noticed was the pressure on my shins. It was not exactly comfortable. I had to shift around a bit, find the right angle for my ankles, figure out where to put my hands. But after about 2 minutes, once I stopped fidgeting, my spine just naturally stacked itself. I was not forcing my shoulders back or lifting my chest. My body simply aligned. And then the breath came, unbidden, a deep, slow inhale that filled my entire belly. I had been sitting in chairs for 40 years, slumping into lumbar support cushions, crossing my legs, hunching over keyboards, and I had never once felt my diaphragm move through its full range of motion. A 2021 study from the University of Tokyo's Department of Rehabilitation Sciences found that sitting in seiza naturally increases lung capacity by up to 18%, compared to slouching in a typical Western chair, because it forces your diaphragm into its optimal dome shape. When you sit in a chair, your pelvis tilts backward, your lower back rounds, and your diaphragm gets compressed from below, like a bellows that someone sat on. In seiza, your pelvis tilts forward, your lumbar spine assumes its natural curve, and your diaphragm can descend fully on every inhale. I spent the first day of my experiment sitting like this while drinking my morning tea, a cup of sencha I had brewed in a small clay pot, and my wife walked into the room and asked if I had gotten taller. I had not, but I was breathing so deeply that my entire ribcage felt unlocked. The intercostal muscles between my ribs, which had been essentially frozen for years, were suddenly stretching and contracting with each breath. I felt a popping sensation near my sternum on the third deep inhale, not painful, just a release, like a knot untying. Try it tonight, just for 5 minutes on a cushion on the floor, and feel how your breath drops from your chest down into your belly without you even trying. You will know you are doing it right when your inhale feels like it is filling your lower back, not just your front. Number 14 is something called oyu by kakyu, which translates to thumb breathing, and it sounds ridiculous until you try it. You take your right thumb, and you gently press your right nostril closed, inhaling slowly through the left nostril for 4 seconds. Then you release the right nostril. Press the left nostril closed with your right ring finger, and exhale through the right nostril for 8 seconds. Then you reverse it. I did this on the morning of day 2, sitting on my bedroom floor at 6 a.m. And within 3 rounds, my mind, which had been racing through my to-do list, went completely quiet. The first round felt awkward. My fingers did not want to cooperate. I pressed too hard on my nose and then too soft, and air leaked out the side. But by the 3rd round, I found the rhythm, and something in my brain just clicked off. The mechanism here is fascinating. A 2019 paper from the Nippon Medical School showed that unilateral nostril breathing directly stimulates the opposite hemisphere of the brain and activates the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve. The left nostril, when you inhale through it exclusively, seems to have a direct line to the calming centers of the brain. I do not fully understand the neurology, but I can tell you what it felt like. It felt like someone was pouring cool water over the front of my brain, right behind my forehead, where all my anxious thoughts seemed to live. When I looked in the mirror after 10 minutes of this, the whites of my eyes were brighter. I am not making that up. The redness and the faint yellow tinge that I had just accepted as a normal feature of adult life were gone, replaced by a clear, bright white that made me look 5 years younger. You can try this one right now, wherever you are sitting, and see if you do not feel a subtle shift in your alertness within 60 seconds. Use your thumb for the right nostril and your ring finger for the left. Keep your index and middle fingers resting gently on your forehead. And do not rush. The exhale must be twice as long as the inhale. That ratio is non-negotiable. Number 13 is a habit that every Japanese schoolchild learns before they learn algebra, and it is called teiso, the morning breathing exercise that accompanies radio calisthenics. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., a national radio broadcast plays a piano melody, and millions of Japanese people, from construction workers to office ladies to elderly folks in the park, perform a synchronized deep breathing sequence that involves a slow, full arm raise on the inhale and a gradual lowering on the exhale. I found the recording online, a slightly tinny piano track that sounded like it had been recorded in 1962, and I did this on day 3, standing in my backyard in the cold morning air. The grass was wet with dew. My breath was visible in little clouds. And as I raised my arms overhead on the inhale, reaching my fingertips toward the sky, I felt my entire ribcage expand like an accordion. The combination of the rhythmic breathing and the full body stretch felt like I was wringing out my lungs. The Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare has promoted this practice since 1928, and a longitudinal study from Tohoku University found that adults who perform teiso at least 3 times a week have a 27% lower incidence of stress-related hypertension. The routine only lasts about 3 minutes. There is a specific sequence. Arms up, arms down, arms out to the sides, a gentle twist, a forward bend, all synchronized to the breath. The beauty of this habit is that it ties your breath to movement, so you cannot overthink it. Your body just follows the rhythm, and your mind gets a 3-minute vacation. I found myself looking forward to that 6:30 a.m. piano melody, standing in my backyard like a strange man doing radio calisthenics in the suburbs, and I did not care. For those 3 minutes, I was not thinking about deadlines or cholesterol levels or the weird noise my car was making. I was just breathing and moving, like a Japanese grandfather in a park in Osaka. Number 12 is the bamboo breath, take bukkakyu, and this one genuinely changed the way I understand lung capacity. The idea is to imagine your torso as a hollow bamboo stalk, and you inhale not from the top down but from the bottom up, filling your lower belly first, then your ribcage, then your upper chest, like pouring water into a tube. Most of us in the West breathe backwards. We suck in our guts and puff up our chests, which fills maybe the top third of our lungs and leaves the rest stagnant. I practiced this on day 2 while walking through a park, a small neighborhood park with a pond and some ducks, and I focused on initiating every inhale from my pelvic floor. It felt strange at first, like I was trying to breathe into my hips. But once I got the hang of it, I noticed that I could walk faster and longer without getting winded, because I was using my entire lung volume instead of just the top third. A 2020 respiratory study from Osaka University's Sports Medicine Department found that diaphragmatic breathing patterns like this increase blood oxygen saturation by an average of 4% during moderate exercise. 4% may not sound like much, but it is the difference between feeling winded after a flight of stairs and feeling like you could climb 3 more. The real genius of this habit, though, is that it trains you to breathe this way unconsciously. By day 5 of my experiment, I caught myself breathing like a bamboo stalk while sitting in traffic, and my shoulders, which normally live somewhere up near my ears, were actually relaxed. I was stuck behind a garbage truck, the light was red. I was going to be late for a dentist appointment, and yet my breath was slow and deep and filling my entire torso. That had never happened before in my life. Number 11 is the practice of kucho, which translates literally to mouth posture, and it is the silent, invisible breathing habit that Japanese dentists and orthodontists have been teaching for decades. The idea is simple. Your tongue rests gently on the roof of your mouth, your lips are closed, and you breathe exclusively through your nose, even during light physical exertion. I realized on day 1 that I was a chronic mouth breather. I woke up with a dry mouth every morning. My tongue felt like sandpaper. I snored loudly enough to wake my wife, and I probably looked slightly bewildered in most of my childhood photos. Switching to nasal breathing full-time was uncomfortable for the first 48 hours. My nose felt too small, my sinuses felt congested, and I kept catching myself with my jaw hanging open while scrolling on my phone. I would be reading an article about some political scandal, completely absorbed, and then I would notice that my mouth was wide open, and my tongue was flopped on the floor of my mouth like a dead fish. I had to consciously remind myself, dozens of times per hour, to close my lips and lift my tongue. But by day 4, something shifted. A 2022 study from Kyushu University's dental school demonstrated that consistent nasal breathing filters, warms, and humidifies incoming air, reducing airborne pathogen exposure by up to 40%. And it also increases nitric oxide production in the nasal sinuses, which dilates blood vessels and improves oxygen uptake. Nitric oxide is a molecule that most people have never heard of, but it is critical. It is produced in your nasal passages, and when you breathe through your nose, you carry it down into your lungs, where it opens up your airways and improves gas exchange. When you breathe through your mouth, you bypass your nitric oxide factory entirely. I stopped snoring. My wife confirmed it. She said she woke up in the middle of the night on day 4 and had to check if I was still alive because she could not hear me. I also noticed that my afternoon energy crashes, which I had attributed to blood sugar, actually correlated with mouth breathing spells. When I kept my mouth closed, my energy stayed stable. This is the habit that costs $0 and requires 0 time, but it demands constant awareness, and it is worth every ounce of that effort. You will catch yourself mouth breathing 100 times today. Close your mouth. Lift your tongue. Breathe through your nose. Do it again and again and again. Number 10 is the sigh of relief, and in Japanese culture, this is not just an emotional expression. It is a deliberate physiological reset called tamaki. We think of sighing as a sign of defeat or frustration, something you do when you are giving up or feeling sorry for yourself. But in Japan, a deep, audible exhale is treated as a legitimate stress release tool, a way to physically expel tension from the body. I tried this on day 3 after a particularly tense phone call with my insurance company. I had been on hold for 45 minutes, transferred to 3 different departments, and then told that my claim was denied because of a paperwork error that was their fault. I was furious. My jaw was clenched so tight my teeth hurt. My shoulders were up around my ears. And instead of clenching harder and powering through, I sat down on the edge of my bed, took a single deep inhale through my nose, and then let out a long, noisy exhale through my mouth, like I was deflating. The sound was not pretty. It was a ragged, guttural sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep in my abdomen. I did this 3 times. My heart rate, which I was tracking on a wearable monitor, dropped from 94 to 72 in under 2 minutes. The physiological explanation is straightforward. A prolonged exhale activates the vagus nerve, which signals your heart to slow down and your blood pressure to decrease. The vagus nerve is the main highway of the parasympathetic nervous system, and a long exhale is like pressing the brake pedal on your stress response. Researchers at the University of Tokyo's Graduate School of Medicine published a paper in 2021 showing that intentional sighing cycles, performed 3 times in a row, reduced salivary cortisol levels by 22% within 10 minutes. The Japanese do not pathologize the sigh. They weaponize it. Next time you feel that tension building in your chest, do not swallow it. Do not tell yourself to calm down. Do not take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out in one long, shameless exhale, and watch your body thank you. Number 9 is the ocean breath, and this one comes from the world of Japanese martial arts, specifically Aikido and Kendo. It is called ibuki, and it is a forceful, audible exhale through a constricted throat, creating a sound like the ocean or like a distant wave crashing. I first tried this on day 4, standing in my garage with the door closed, so my neighbors would not think I was having a medical event. The garage smelled like gasoline and old paint, and I was standing on a concrete floor in my bare feet, feeling slightly ridiculous. You inhale deeply through your nose, and then you exhale through your mouth with your throat partially closed, creating a ha sound that vibrates in your chest. The exhale is slow, controlled, and powerful, lasting at least twice as long as the inhale. The key is the throat constriction. You are not just exhaling. You are creating resistance, like breathing through a straw, which forces your respiratory muscles to work harder and generates a vibration that you can feel in your sternum. I did 10 rounds of this, and by the end, my hands were tingling from the increased oxygenation, and my mind felt razor sharp. The tingling was a bit alarming at first, but it was just the carbon dioxide levels in my blood shifting. A harmless and temporary sensation. A 2018 study from the National Institute of Fitness and Sports in Kanoya found that ibuki-style breathing, practiced by elite kendo athletes, significantly increases heart rate variability, which is one of the best biomarkers for stress resilience. The higher your heart rate variability, the faster your body can switch from fight or flight mode back to rest and digest mode. Low heart rate variability means you are stuck in stress mode, unable to downshift. High heart rate variability means you are flexible, responsive, resilient. This is not a relaxing breath. It is an activating breath that paradoxically leaves you feeling calmer because you have burned off the stress chemicals. I started doing this every morning before checking my email, and it became my armor against the day. 10 rounds of ibuki, standing in my garage, making ocean sounds. And then I could face my inbox without my heart rate spiking. Number 8 is a habit so simple that I almost did not include it on this list, but it ended up being one of the most impactful, and it is the practice of counting the exhale, or kazwaru. You do not control the inhale at all. You simply let the inhale happen naturally, and then you count the seconds of your exhale, trying to extend it by 1 second each round. I did this on day 2 while lying in bed, unable to fall asleep, because my brain was replaying an embarrassing conversation from 2008. You know the kind of memory I am talking about. Something you said at a party 15 years ago that was slightly awkward, and your brain has decided that 2 a.m. is the perfect time to relive it in excruciating detail. I started with a 4-second exhale, then a 5-second exhale, then a 6-second exhale. The counting gave my brain something to do besides torment me. By the time I reached an 8-second exhale, I was asleep. I woke up 8 hours later with my phone still in my hand, the screen dark, my thumb still resting on the glass. The science here is robust. A 2020 meta-analysis from the Japanese Society of Sleep Research reviewed 14 studies on extended exhalation and found that it consistently lowers heart rate, reduces sympathetic nervous system activation, and improves sleep onset latency by an average of 15 minutes. 15 minutes may not sound like much, but if you have ever lain in bed for 2 hours staring at the ceiling, you know that 15 minutes is a miracle. The Japanese do not lie in bed scrolling through social media and wondering why they cannot sleep. They count their exhales until their body takes over. I have not had a sleepless night since I adopted this habit, and I used to have at least 2 per week. The trick is to not force it. Do not try to make your exhale longer than is comfortable. Just count and let each exhale be a tiny bit longer than the last, and eventually your nervous system will get the message that it is safe to sleep. Number 7 is the paper strip breath. And this is a training tool used in Japanese respiratory therapy called the Tanzaku method. You hang a thin strip of tissue paper from a string at face level, and you practice exhaling so gently and so steadily that the paper does not flutter. The goal is to produce the absolute minimum amount of air disturbance while maintaining a continuous stream of breath. I rigged this up in my kitchen on day 4 using a piece of toilet paper and some dental floss. I tied the floss to 2 cabinet handles, creating a horizontal line at eye level. And then I taped a thin strip of toilet paper to the center. It hung there, limp and unimpressive, and I knelt in front of it like I was about to perform some kind of bizarre ritual. I failed miserably for the first 20 attempts. Every exhale made the paper dance around like it was in a hurricane. I was blowing too hard, too fast, too erratically. But eventually, I found the sweet spot, a slow, controlled release that barely moved the paper at all. The strip just hung there, motionless, even though I was exhaling directly at it. What this training does is phenomenal. It teaches you to engage your diaphragm with microscopic precision, and it reveals how much tension you carry in your breathing muscles. I realized that I had been exhaling in short, choppy bursts my entire life, like a car engine that needed a tune-up. A 2019 paper from the Japanese Respiratory Society demonstrated that the Tanzaku method improves respiratory muscle coordination in patients with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but the benefits extend to anyone who wants to breathe more efficiently. After practicing this for 3 days, I noticed that my resting breath rate dropped from about 16 breaths per minute to around 10. I was breathing less and getting more oxygen. That is efficiency. The Tanzaku method is humbling. It will show you exactly how uncoordinated your breathing is, and then it will teach you to smooth it out, one feather light exhale at a time. Number 6 is the practice of breath holding after the exhale, known in some Japanese meditation circles as kumbhaka, borrowed from yogic traditions but deeply integrated into Japanese Zen practice. The specific variation I tried is called the empty pause. You exhale completely until there is nothing left in your lungs, and then you sit there empty for as long as is comfortable, before allowing the inhale to rush in naturally. I did this on day 5, sitting in seiza on my bedroom floor, and the first empty pause lasted maybe 3 seconds before I panicked and gasped for air. The sensation of having no air in your lungs is deeply uncomfortable. Your brain starts screaming at you to breathe, and you have to override that primal signal with conscious intention. By the 10th round, I was sitting empty for 15 seconds, and in that emptiness, my thoughts stopped. There was no mental chatter, no anxiety, no planning, no regret. Just stillness. It was the first time in my adult life that my mind had been completely silent without the aid of alcohol or exhaustion. A 2022 study from Kyoto University's Center for Mind-Body Medicine found that regular practice of post-exhalation breath holding increases carbon dioxide tolerance, which reduces the frequency of panic attacks and improves overall stress resilience. The mechanism is counterintuitive. Panic attacks are often triggered by a feeling of air hunger, that terrifying sensation that you cannot get enough oxygen. But the real problem during a panic attack is usually not a lack of oxygen. It is a lack of carbon dioxide, because you are breathing too fast and blowing off too much CO2. By training your body to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide through breath holds, you essentially raise your panic threshold. You teach your brain that the feeling of air hunger is not an emergency. It is just a sensation. I have not had a full-blown anxiety spiral since day 5, and I used to have at least 2 per month. The empty pause is not easy. It requires you to sit with discomfort. But on the other side of that discomfort is a stillness that I did not know was possible. Number 5 is the alternate nostril walking meditation, and this is a practice I learned from a Japanese monk during a visit to a temple in Kyoto 3 years ago. But I never actually tried it until this experiment. The temple was called Ryonji, famous for its rock garden, and I was there on a humid July morning, sweating through my shirt, watching a monk walk impossibly slowly across the gravel. I asked him what he was doing, and he explained the practice of kinhin, walking meditation, and mentioned that some practitioners combine it with alternate nostril breathing. I nodded politely, filed it away as something I would never try, and went back to my busy life. But on day 6 of this experiment, I decided to give it a real attempt. The practice is simple in theory and maddeningly difficult in execution. You walk very slowly, 1 step per breath, and you alternate which nostril you inhale through with each step. Left nostril inhale, right step. Right nostril exhale, left step. It sounds impossibly complicated, and for the first 10 minutes on day 6, I looked like a malfunctioning robot. I was in a park at sunrise, shuffling along the path, pressing my fingers to my nose, losing count of my steps, forgetting which nostril I was on, and generally looking like I needed medical attention. But then my body found the rhythm, and something extraordinary happened. My mind, which normally treats walking as an opportunity to run through every problem I have ever had, went completely silent. I was just breathing and stepping in a park at sunrise, with the light filtering through the oak trees and the sound of birdsong in the distance. A 2021 study from the University of Tsukuba's Institute of Health and Sports Sciences found that combining rhythmic movement with controlled nasal breathing increases alpha brain wave activity, which is associated with relaxed alertness, more than either practice alone. Alpha waves are the brain state you enter when you are calm but focused, like when you are lost in a good book or watching a sunset. I walked for 40 minutes and it felt like 10. I came home, and my wife said I looked like I had just come back from a week-long vacation. Kinhin is now a permanent part of my Sunday morning routine. I do not always do the alternate nostril breathing with it. Sometimes I just walk slowly and breathe naturally. But when I need to quiet a particularly noisy mind, the combination is unbeatable. Number 4 is the practice of abdominal compression breathing, and this one comes from the world of Japanese traditional singing and theater, specifically no drama and enka music. It is called fukushiki kakyu, and it involves actively compressing your abdominal muscles on the exhale, like you are squeezing every last molecule of air out of a bellows. I tried this on day 6 while sitting in my car before a stressful meeting. I was parked in the office lot, the engine was off, and I could feel the tension building in my chest. The meeting was with my boss and 2 executives, and I was not prepared. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweaty, and instead of just sitting there marinating in cortisol, I did 5 minutes of abdominal compression breathing. You inhale deeply into your belly, and then you exhale while pulling your navel back toward your spine, squeezing your intercostal muscles and forcing the air out in a controlled stream. The physical sensation was so intense that I started sweating. My abdominal muscles were trembling by the fourth exhale. This is not a relaxing breath. It is a workout for your respiratory muscles. A 2017 study from the Tokyo University of the Arts, studying the breathing patterns of professional no actors, found that this technique increases maximal voluntary ventilation by 23% and strengthens the transverse abdominis, the deepest layer of abdominal muscle, more effectively than conventional core exercises. The transverse abdominis is the muscle that acts like a corset around your midsection, and when it is weak, your posture suffers and your breathing becomes shallow. After 3 days of practicing this for 5 minutes each morning, I noticed that my posture had improved without me consciously trying. My core was engaged, my shoulders were back, and I was breathing deeper even at rest. This is the habit that builds the infrastructure for all the other habits. If you only have time for one physical practice, make it this one. Your diaphragm and your abs will thank you. Number 3 is the gratitude exhale. And this is where Japanese breathing habits veer from pure physiology into something that feels almost spiritual. The practice is simple. Before each meal, you take one deep breath, and on the exhale, you silently express gratitude for the food in front of you. This is embedded in the Japanese phrase itadakimasu, which is spoken before every meal and translates roughly to I humbly receive. I started doing this on day 1, not because I thought it would change my stress levels, but because I wanted to honor the full cultural context of these practices. I had read about itadakimasu in books about Japanese culture, and I knew it was more than just a reflexive phrase, that it carried a deep sense of gratitude for the farmers who grew the food, the sun and rain that nourished it, the hands that prepared it. But I had never actually practiced it myself. What I did not expect was that this single exhale before eating would become the most grounding moment of my day. On day 3, I was eating lunch alone in my kitchen, a boring turkey sandwich on whole wheat bread with a slice of cheese and some lettuce. Nothing special. I put my hands together, closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and on the exhale, I silently thanked the turkey, the wheat, the cow, the lettuce, the hands that picked it and transported it and sold it to me. And I felt this sudden, overwhelming sense of calm. My shoulders dropped, my jaw unclenched, and I actually tasted my food for the first time in years. The turkey had a subtle smokiness I had never noticed. The lettuce was crisp and slightly sweet. The bread had a nutty flavor that I had been ignoring for years. A 2020 study from the Japanese Association of Dietary Fiber Research found that people who practice mindful eating, including a pre-meal pause and deep breath, consume 14% fewer calories and report 31% higher meal satisfaction. But the stress reduction was what floored me. That single exhale became a reset button, a moment of enforced stillness in a day full of noise. Try it at your next meal, even if it is just a granola bar. One breath, one exhale, one moment of genuine thanks, and see if your entire nervous system does not downshift. You might find, as I did, that the food tastes better and the stress feels further away. Number 2 is the practice of hachibunmi, the 80% breath. You may have heard of hara hachibu, the Confucian principle of eating until you are 80% full. But the Japanese apply this same principle to breathing during moments of high stress. When you feel panic rising, when your heart is pounding and your breath is getting shallow and rapid, you deliberately breathe to only 80% of your lung capacity. No deep gasping inhales, no forceful exhales. Just gentle, partial breaths that signal to your nervous system that there is no emergency. I tried this on day 7, during the most stressful moment of my entire experiment. My dog, a golden retriever named Cooper who has the survival instincts of a potato, escaped from the backyard, ran into the street, and nearly got hit by a car. I saw it happen from the kitchen window. I dropped my coffee mug, ran outside in my socks, and sprinted into the street, waving my arms at the oncoming car. The driver swerved. Cooper, oblivious, trotted over to a neighbor's lawn and started sniffing a hydrangea. I caught him, carried him inside, and then I felt the panic attack building, the tunnel vision, the cold sweat, the feeling that I could not get enough air. My chest was tight, my fingers were tingling, the world was narrowing to a pinpoint. And instead of taking deep breaths, which I have always been told to do, I took shallow, 80% breaths. In for 2 seconds, out for 2 seconds, never filling my lungs completely, never emptying them completely. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the refrigerator, Cooper licking my face, and I breathed like this for 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, the panic subsided. My heart rate dropped below 100. I was okay. A 2022 paper from the Japanese Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine found that partial breathing techniques, which avoid the hyperventilation cycle of over-breathing during panic, are more effective at aborting panic attacks than traditional deep breathing protocols. The logic is counterintuitive but brilliant. Panic makes you feel like you are suffocating, so you try to take bigger breaths, which lowers your carbon dioxide levels too much, which makes you feel more like you are suffocating. It is a vicious cycle. The 80% breath breaks that cycle by preventing the hyperventilation in the first place. This habit is not just a stress reduction tool. It is a panic extinguisher, and I will carry it with me for the rest of my life. I hope you never need it, but if you do, remember. Shallow breaths, 80%, in and out through the nose until the wave passes. Number 1, the most transformative habit I tried all week. The one that genuinely rewired my relationship with stress is the practice of mokyuso. Mokyuso is the brief meditation performed at the beginning and end of every Japanese martial arts class, from karate to judo to kendo. It lasts between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, and it consists of sitting in seiza, closing your eyes, placing your hands in your lap, and breathing naturally while you let your thoughts settle like sediment in a glass of water. I did this for 2 minutes every morning and every evening for 7 days. On day 1, it felt pointless. My mind raced, my back hurt from seiza, and I kept peeking at the timer on my phone to see how much longer I had to endure. My thoughts were a torrent. Did I respond to that email? What am I going to make for dinner? Why did I say that thing to my neighbor in 2015? Is my cholesterol high? Should I get a new water heater? It was not peaceful. It was a cage match with my own brain. On day 3, something shifted. I sat down, closed my eyes, breathed naturally, and for maybe 10 seconds there was nothing. No thoughts, no anxiety. No to-do list. Just breath and stillness, and a profound sense that everything was okay. The thoughts were still there, but they were like clouds passing overhead instead of a storm I was trapped inside. By day 7, I was craving these 2-minute pockets of silence the way I used to crave my afternoon coffee. I would finish a task, and instead of reaching for my phone to scroll through social media, I would want to sit in mokyuso for 2 minutes. My brain had learned that silence was a reward, not a punishment. A 2021 study from the Budo University of Japan, which specializes in martial arts research, found that regular mokyuso practice reduces baseline cortisol levels by an average of 18% and increases prefrontal cortex activity, which is associated with emotional regulation and impulse control. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that makes you a rational adult instead of a reactive toddler. When it is functioning well, you can feel anger without acting on it. You can feel anxiety without spiraling. You can feel an impulse and choose not to follow it. But the numbers do not capture the feeling. The feeling is this. You are a snow globe that has been shaken for 30 years. And someone finally sets you down on a table and lets all the glitter settle. That is Mokyuso. I am now on day 14, a full week after my experiment ended, and I am still doing Mokyuso every morning and every night. 2 minutes when I wake up, before I check my phone. 2 minutes before bed, after I brush my teeth. My resting heart rate is still 11 beats lower. My sleep score is still elevated. My wife says I am easier to be around. She said it on day 12, while we were eating dinner. And she said it with a kind of surprised relief. Like she had been waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it just never did. My dog, who has no concept of breathing techniques, seems to like me more. He has started lying at my feet during my morning Mokyuso, instead of pacing around waiting for his walk. I think animals can sense when a human being is no longer vibrating with low-grade panic all the time. These 15 habits cost me nothing. No supplements, no apps, no expensive retreats, no biohacking gadgets. Just my own lungs and a willingness to sit still and pay attention to the most fundamental act of being alive. The Japanese have not solved stress through technology or pharmacology. They have solved it through ritual, through daily practices so ancient and so embedded in the culture that they do not even think of them as stress management. They just think of them as breathing, and now so do I. Pick one habit from this list, just one, and try it tomorrow morning. Not all 15. That would be overwhelming, and overwhelm is what we are trying to escape. Pick the one that resonated with you most. The one that felt like it was speaking directly to your particular brand of exhaustion. And do it for 5 minutes. Then do it again the next day, and the next. And see if, a week from now, you are not a slightly calmer, slightly healthier, slightly more present version of yourself. I suspect you will be.